How did the land of Prophet Ibrahim, the man who broke idols with his own hands, become the very center of idol worship? How did the people of Makkah slowly drift so far from pure worship that hundreds of idols stood around the Kaaba itself? It did not happen in a single night. It began with love, turned into tradition, and ended in shirk that spread across all of Arabia. For generations after Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Ismail, peace be upon them, the people of Arabia still carried traces of the religion of Tawheed. They respected the Kaaba. They honored Allah. And deep in their hearts remained the memory of the man who had once stood against idol worship with fearless conviction. But over time, something slowly changed. It did not begin with open rebellion against Allah. It began with small changes, harmless habits, traditions people no longer question. And no one realized where it would eventually lead. The descendants of Ismail loved the Kaaba deeply. They saw it as the holiest place on earth. Every stone around it felt sacred to them, because Prophet Ibrahim himself had built this house with his own blessed hands. The people of Makkah believed there was barakah in everything connected to it. Whenever travelers left Makkah for trade or long journeys, many would carry a small stone from near the Kaaba with them. They believed it reminded them of home and brought blessings during travel. At first, these stones meant nothing more, but what happened next slowly changed Arabia forever. As years passed, people who lived far from Makkah began placing those stones in their homes. Some started circling around them, the way pilgrims circled the Kaaba. Others treated them with unusual respect. Slowly, emotions turned into rituals, and rituals turned into beliefs. Then another idea spread among the Arabs. Sometimes strange stones would fall from the sky like meteors, and many people believed these stones were connected to the stars. The Arabs already admired that. They looked at the stars with awe and imagined they carried hidden powers. So when unusual stones appeared, people began treating them as heavenly objects. At first, they only honored them. Then they feared them. And eventually, they worshipped them. Generation after generation passed. What once seemed strange slowly became normal. Any unusual stone could become sacred if people admired it enough. A beautiful shape, a rare color, an impressive size, and soon people attached spiritual meaning to it. But the corruption did not stop there. Soon people began carving statues with their own hands. Some were shaped like respected elders. Others represented imaginary gods. They gave them names, placed them in special locations, made vows in their names, and begged them for help during hardship. The people still claimed they believed in Allah, but now they said these idols were only intercessors. They believed the idols would bring them closer to Allah, speak on their behalf, and solve their problems. During difficulty, they called upon them. During fear, they prayed to them. During journeys, they sought protection from them. The very Shirk Prophet Ibrahim had spent his life fighting, had returned to Arabia once again. But one event accelerated this darkness more than anything else. A man named Umar ibn Luhai traveled outside Arabia. He was fascinated by what he saw. The idea settled into his heart, and before long he asked them to give him one of their idols. They agreed, and he carried that idol back to Makkah. No one understood then how dangerous that decision would become. The idol was called Hubal. Umar ibn Luhai placed it near the Kaaba itself, and slowly other tribes followed his example. One by one, idols began appearing around the sacred sanctuary. Before long, the house built for the worship of one god became surrounded by false gods. Among the famous idols were Isaf and Nila near Zamzam. There was Al-Lat, Al-Uzza, and Manat, idols worshipped by powerful tribes across Arabia. Every tribe had its own object of devotion. Every region had its own shrine. The Kaaba still stood in the center. But the message of Ibrahim had almost vanished. People no longer remembered why the Kaaba had been built in the first place. They no longer remembered the courage of the prophet who had shattered idols with his own hands. To many Arabs, idol worship had become as natural as breathing. And yet, Allah had not abandoned this land. Far in the future from among these same people, a child would soon be born who would tear down every idol and restore the religion of Ibrahim once again. But before that child arrived, Arabia would pass through years of struggle, power, and tribal rivalry. And one family in particular would rise to prominence in Makkah, the tribe of Quraysh. Among them emerged a leader named Qusay ibn Kilab. He was intelligent, respected, and politically gifted. Under his leadership, Quraysh gained control over Makkah and the affairs of the Kaaba. Until then, Mecca had remained mostly open land surrounding the sacred sanctuary. People hesitated to build permanent homes too close to the Kaaba out of reverence. But Qusay changed that. He organized the city, established homes around the sanctuary, and created a council house called Dar al-Nadwa. This became the political heart of Makkah. Major decisions were discussed there. Tribal matters were settled there. Marriages, alliances, and disputes all passed through this gathering place. For the first time, Makkah was becoming more than a religious center. It was becoming a city of influence. But Qusay understood something important. The honor of Makkah depended on serving the pilgrims. Every year, travelers crossed burning deserts to visit the Kaaba. They arrived exhausted, thirsty, and vulnerable. Qusay gathered Quraysh and reminded them that caring for these pilgrims was not just tradition. It was an honor. So he established important responsibilities among the people of Makkah. One office managed water for the pilgrims. Another provided food. Others cared for the Kaaba itself. These positions became symbols of enormous prestige, and that prestige would soon ignite conflict within Quraysh itself. After Qusay's death, leadership passed through his descendants. Rivalries slowly formed between different branches of the family. The struggle for influence grew stronger with each generation. Eventually, power settled among the descendants of Abd Manat, particularly a respected man named Hashim. And Hashim was unlike many leaders before him. He was generous, compassionate, and deeply respected by the people. He fed the poor, honored the pilgrims, and expanded the trade routes of Quraysh. Under his leadership, Quraysh began organizing large trade caravans north towards Syria in the summer and south toward Yemen in the winter. But this was dangerous work. Arabia's deserts were filled with hostiles and bandits. Caravans could vanish without warning. One wrong alliance could destroy an entire journey. Yet Hashim managed to build agreements with tribes along the trade routes. Slowly, Quraysh became wealthy and influential throughout Arabia. And during one of those journeys to Syria, something happened that would shape the future forever. Stopped in Yathrib, the city later known as Medina. There he met a noblewoman named Salma bint Amar. She was intelligent, respected, and independent. Hashim admired her immediately. Their marriage soon followed, and after some time a son was born. His name was Shaiba. But no one knew then that this young child would one day become one of the most important figures in the history of Makkah. Because years later, tragedy struck. During another trading journey to Syria, Hashim fell ill and died far from home. And back in Makkah, the future of Quraysh suddenly became uncertain. Back in Yathrib, the young boy Shaba grew up far from Makkah under the care of his mother, Salma. He was intelligent, calm, and carried a natural dignity that people noticed even as a child. But while he lived away from Quraysh, events in Makkah continued to unfold. After Hashim's death, responsibility for serving the pilgrims passed to his brother, Abdul Mutalib. He managed the affairs of Makkah well, but one concern remained in his heart: his nephew, the son of Hashim, the child growing up far from his people. Years passed and Shaba became strong enough to travel. Finally, Abdul Mutalib journeyed to Yathrib to bring him back to Makkah. When he arrived, he spoke gently to Salma and explained that the boy belonged among his father's people. He would inherit the honor of Hashim's family and grow among Quraysh. A mother's heart never lets go easily. But Salma knew the truth of his words. When Abdul Mutalib prepared to leave with the young boy seated behind him on the same camel, the people of Makkah saw them entering the city together. Dust covered the child's clothes from travel, and many assumed he was a servant brought back from another land. People began shouting, "Al Mutalib has brought a slave." A look. Abdul Mutalib, The name spread through the streets before anyone could correct it. Abdul Mutalib, the servant of Mutalib, though Al-Mutalib tried to explain that this was actually his nephew, the son of Hashim. The nickname remained. Soon the entire city knew Shaiba only by this new name, and that child would one day become the grandfather of the final prophet. But no one realized what was coming. As Abdul Mutalib grew older, his presence became impossible to ignore. He carried wisdom beyond his years and earned the respect of Quraysh. After the death of Al-Mutalib, leadership responsibilities gradually passed into his hands. Among those responsibilities was one problem that constantly troubled him: water. The well of Zamzam, once the miracle granted to Hajar and Ismail, had long disappeared beneath the earth. Generations earlier, during tribal conflicts, it had been buried and forgotten. The people of Makkah now struggled for water, relying on scattered wells and difficult labor to serve the pilgrims. But Abdul Mutalib could not stop thinking about Zamzam. The stories of the lost well remained alive in old memories. Somewhere beneath the ground, the blessed spring still existed. And then, something extraordinary happened. One night, while sleeping near the Kaaba, Abdul Mutalib heard a voice commanding him to dig. At first, the message seemed mysterious, but the voice returned again and again, guiding him toward the forgotten location of Zamzam. When morning came, he began digging. Many people mocked him. Others watched with curiosity. But Abdul Mutalib continued despite exhaustion, heat, and growing opposition. Day after day, he dug through the earth near the Kaaba with almost no help. Then suddenly, the ground changed. Water appeared. Zamzam had returned. The people of Makkah were stunned. What had been lost for generations now flowed once again before their eyes. As Abdul Mutalib continued clearing the well, more discoveries emerged from beneath the earth. Ancient treasures buried long ago, including swords and ornaments once dedicated to the Kaaba. The respect people already had for him only deepened. But with honor came loneliness. The work of restoring Zamzam had nearly broken his strength. At that time, Abdul Mutalib had only one son old enough to help him. But standing near the sacred sanctuary one day, he raised his hands and made a vow. A vow that would soon shake all of Makkah. He prayed, "If Allah grants me 10 strong sons to support me, I will sacrifice one of them in his name." Time passed, and Allah granted him exactly what he asked for. One by one, his sons grew into strong young men. They stood beside him, defended him, and carried the honor of their family. But then came the moment Abdul Mutalib had feared for years. The vow had to be fulfilled. He gathered his sons and told them everything. No one protested. No one ran. Instead, they submitted to their father's decision with remarkable courage. Each son wrote his name on an arrow so lots could be drawn before Hubal, the idol the people used for divination near the Kaaba, and then the arrows were cast. The crowd waited in silence. When the result appeared, a wave of shock spread through Makkah. The chosen son was Abdullah, the youngest, the most beloved, the one whose face people compared to the brightness of the moon. Abdul Mutalib froze. The people around him could hardly believe what they had heard. Women cried. Men pleaded with him to stop. Abdullah was deeply loved among Quraysh, admired for his beauty, character, and calm nature. But Abdul Mutalib believed he had made a sacred vow, and now all of Makkah watched to see what he would do. He took Abdullah toward the place of sacrifice, near the Kaaba. Panic spread through the crowd. Voices rose from every direction. "No! Do not kill him! Then there must be another way." The tension became unbearable. Even Abdul Mutalib himself stood torn between love for his son and fear of breaking his vow. That decision would soon be tested. Finally, some people suggested seeking advice from a wise woman known for resolving difficult matters. A delegation traveled to consult her and explained everything. After listening carefully, she proposed a solution. "Place Abdullah's name against 10 camels," she said, and cast lots. "If Abdullah's name appears, add 10 more camels and repeat. Continue until the result falls upon the camels instead of the boy." Hope returned. The people hurried back to Mecca and began the process. The lots were drawn. Abdullah. Again they increased the camels. The lots were drawn again. Still Abdullah. 10 more camels were added. Again, Abdullah. The crowd grew anxious with every attempt. Meanwhile, Abdul Mutalib stood beside the Kaaba praying desperately for Allah's mercy. Again and again, the arrows pointed toward Abdullah. 20 camels, 30, 50, 70, 90. Still Abdullah. Then finally, the number reached 100. The arrows were cast once more. This time, the lot fell upon the camels. The crowd erupted with relief, but Abdul Mutalib refused to move until the process was repeated several more times to remove all doubt. Each time, the result remained the same. Abdullah had been spared. 100 camels were sacrificed instead, and from that day, the blood money among the Arabs became fixed at 100 camels. The people celebrated, and Abdullah returned home alive. But hidden within this event was a mystery no one yet understood. Allah had preserved Abdullah for a reason, because from him would come a child unlike any other in human history. Soon afterward, Abdullah married Amina bint Wahb, one of the most noble women of Quraysh. Their marriage brought joy to both families, and for a short time peace entered their lives. But happiness in this world never stays forever. Only a short while after the marriage, Abdullah joined a trade caravan traveling north towards Syria. On the return journey, he became ill while passing through Yathrib. The caravan continued onward, leaving him behind with relatives until someone from Makkah could return for him. When news reached Abdul Mutalib, he immediately sent his eldest son Harith to bring Abdullah home. But when Harith arrived, it was already too late. Abdullah had passed away, far from Makkah, far from his young bride, far from the father who loved him so deeply. He was only 25 years old. The news devastated the family. Abdul Mutalib was crushed with grief. Amina's world collapsed before it had truly begun. The marriage that had barely started was already over. Yet unknown to them all, Amina was carrying a trust greater than the world itself. The child in her womb would soon change the course of human history forever. The idols surrounding the Kaaba still stood proudly. Arabia still drowned in darkness. But the birth of light was now very near. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with others who love Islamic history. And subscribe to Islamic Conquest for more powerful stories from the past. Stories that still shape our world today.